The Global Africa Business Initiative is an initiative that is co-convened by the United Nations and the African Union. It's hosted by the UN Global Compact on behalf of the UN system. And what we aim to do is to reshape Africa's narrative. Africa's story is not simply that of, poor food systems or underutilized infrastructure, etc. There really is a burgeoning and a growing private sector that is contributing so much to transformation on energy, on food systems, on digital technology, on creating jobs. We see our young people, their creativity, their sports, and we want to highlight that and use that to really demonstrate the opportunities where Africans themselves are driving and growing their own GDP. I think it's so important to be able to demonstrate that, where we are right now, but also where we can go. So the Global Africa Business Initiative brings together private sector, African private sector, global private sector, governments and investors to talk about what we need to do to transform in energy, in digital, in trade, in the creative and the sports industry. They're key players for Africa's growth and development. And we're honored to be able to have an ongoing dialogue, but demonstrate action and how African private sector is helping move progress in those areas. It's a moment for us to reflect from a multi-stakeholder perspective, governments, businesses, civil society, about how we really need to put our energies together to transform the food systems. Statistics from the report that was launched say that about 8% of the world population is facing hunger. That's about over 700 million people. But yet we know at the same time there's so much untapped potential, so much misaligned capital, and we really need to put in our efforts to address, the scarcity of food, but yet invest in things like infrastructure, jobs and skills, and seeds and markets to really drive the economy forward. Urgency, as you say, from capital to commitment is really about delivering on words, on promises, on policies, on business plans, and really moving to real action. As I said earlier, with about 8% of the world facing hunger, at the same time with governments being fiscally squeezed, and the opportunity to really mobilize and leverage public-private financing, there's an urgency, as you say. There's the climate crisis, there's rising sea levels, there's many challenges. But I think what is most interesting about the Food Systems Summit is all the solutions are present. We're here in Ethiopia. We had a really good field visit the other day and got to see how the government here is really bringing, a lot of land that was underutilized or not used before into really good and successful farming. So we know there's land for the African continent. We know there's a labor force. There's no shortage of innovation around farming and farming methods. We just need to bring it together and really, as we said, move from commitment to investments and make it happen. I'll take a step back. The UN Global Compact, together with the World Business Council on Sustainable Development and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, have worked to bring together private sector to this Food Systems Summit. And WBCSD then compiled a compendium of successful cases of co-investment to demonstrate that it's possible to invest in the private sector and invest in food systems transformation. So it's a booklet that highlights, I think, over 10 successful case studies of co-creation and co-investment, public-private partnerships that work and that demonstrate that food systems can be transformed. It's important because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are models that can already work and move from pilot to scale up for delivery. The African private sector plays such a key role in a number of things. One, just creating jobs, creating incomes. We have a lot of homegrown innovation. We see a lot of agri-tech, fintech that can help advance food systems, but most importantly, creating jobs and incomes and helping de-risk economies, because we know that when we see local businesses, you can do business and invest. African private sector will play a key role also in supporting the Africa Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. We need to first be able to grow enough food to feed ourselves, to trade within countries, trade across countries, and even on the continent. We're not fully, maximizing the potential of intra-Africa trade. The African private sector will play such a key part in this as well. The UN Global Compact comprises, over 20,000 companies worldwide. We have about 1,000 companies working in food. We also equally have about 1,000 companies working on the African continent. I want to talk about Africa because that's where the need is most. And what we are doing is working with African private sector, specifically business leaders, to challenge them to see how they can help us mobilize financing, mobilize capital, directed towards building infrastructure directed towards advancing skills, skilling up young people, directed towards investing in food systems, because there clearly is a return on investment. Our population needs to be well-nourished and well-fed to be able to contribute to our own economic growth. So we work with business leaders on that. We also have a platform that we call the Global Africa Business Initiative, or GABI, or Unstoppable Africa. It's the event that we hold in September, and really demonstrate the potential and the opportunity that exists on the African continent. The opportunity, again, to scale agriculture, create jobs, drive incomes, empower the smallholder farmers. We saw them in Mojo. Thousands of smallholder farmers who are successfully farming wheat, bananas, and other value chains, giving them, increased value and value addition opportunities. GABI for us is the moment to demonstrate, that Africa and its private sector are investable, they're ready to partner, they're ready to deliver, and they're key drivers of Africa's economic growth. Any country that doesn't feed its people, can't feed its people, doesn't have a healthy population, doesn't have a working population. We know that there's children whose growth is stunted, mothers and families who suffer from malnutrition, etc. So, feeding yourselves, food sovereignty is so important. I think it's the fundamental base of an economy, along with other things such as education and access to water, etc. But it's one of the most fundamentals. I think for Africa, with all of the arable land that we have, the natural resources, the workforce and labor force, it's really an opportunity that we need to seize. But underpinning it, I think we must invest in infrastructure, we must invest in the right technologies, and then quality seed, quality soil. I think the one factor that we do need to change our perspectives on was also on climate resilience. Africa is the continent that contributes least to the climate crisis, but is impacted the most. And we need to work and co-invest around building climate resilience and adaptation, getting more climate resilient seeds and technology that will help us farm more efficiently, because we have to get ahead of what the climate crisis brings in terms of food production and food sustainability. When we coined the term Unstoppable Africa, it was really because Africa is unstoppable. Everything that the world needs for its transformation and what Africa needs for its growth lies on the African continent. Arable land, workforce and skills, consumer markets, natural solar energy, the critical minerals that are in the ground. And so for us, Africa is unstoppable. What we need to do is seize the moment, bring the African private sector, strong African political leaders to sit together and discuss a framework for public-private partnership and create the enabling environment for economic growth. So that's really what the Unstoppable Africa represents. We firmly believe that when Africa wins, the world wins, which is very important. Africa can address its own needs as well as the world's needs. So the types of partnerships that we want are ones that are going to genuinely have Africa at the table, in charge of its own destiny. Africa seen as a true investable partner, a co-creator and a co-innovator in its destiny. That's the type of partnership we're looking for. It spans public and private. It brings due respect to Africa's young population. It acknowledges the really tremendous GDP that sits in the creative industry and the sporting industry as well. First, let me congratulate the government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia for this successful hosting of the Food Systems Summit, along with Italy, who is the co-host. It's been a real pleasure to be here. The summit has been so well organized. We kicked off with an action day with a number of field visits. I personally visited a location called Mojo, where we got to see smallholder farmers coming together in cluster farming, which was bringing them together from small individual farmers into larger groups of farmers and farms, where they could benefit from better agricultural extension, awareness and information, better market information, higher quality seed, etc. It was great to meet the communities and see them, also share with us so kindly their food and their produce, fresh fruit, bread baked from the wheat that they had, yogurt from their own production, and just understand, the value that they were getting from this enhanced cluster methodology of farming. It was really great to see that, both for the wheat value chain as well as the banana value chain. The conference itself, lots of great sessions, significant government presence and commitment. From our side, as part of the business engagement group, we've mobilized over 300 businesses, over 50 CEOs are here, really demonstrating that spirit of public-private partnership.